Icon Comic Con presents Behind the Comic Book Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Mr. 845 here, and we're interviewing another comic book creator and writer. This is all for our Icon Comic Con. This is a part of kind of some of the things that we do. This is the Behind the Comic Book Podcast, and I'm your host, Mr. Ramon Pinheiro, Mr. 845. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Our guest right now, his name is Jacob. Jacob, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm a comic book creator and writer. I've only been into comic books since 2019. I fell into comic books by accident. I was into Magic the Gathering at the time, if you're familiar with the card game. A friend of mine took me to a store. Comic books and that sort of cards and Pokemon kind of fall together. Mm-hmm. So took me to a store. It was called the Card Store, but the majority of the store was actually all comic books, and it was the first time I had ever been in a comic book store. And when I walked in, there was kind of just this aura that you just instantly felt. And I just, like, that day, I don't even think I bought any Magic cards. I was looking at the comic books, so that's kind of how I fell into it. And now I'm a creator and writer. That's kind of the short of it.
Okay. So now, as a comic book writer and creator, if somebody wanted to work with you, or if they wanted to support your works or the stuff that you're doing, how exactly would they do that?
Well, you can definitely go to my Facebook. It's under my name, just as you see it spelled on screen. You're more than welcome to follow me, friend request me, message me. You can, because my personal Facebook is also my professional one. Okay. So you can just type in my name on Facebook, follow me. If you have any questions, send me a message. My Instagram, you can look it up under my name, but it should pop up, but it comes up as my company name, which is RKR Ruchser. It stands, so my Instagram is at Ruchser, RUCKSOR .rare.key.runs. So Rare Key Runs. I tried to think of something that was kind of comic book related for the name. So
okay, cool. And so we'll make sure that we have all the links for them once this episode closes out and we actually hear it.
Ramon, I'm sorry. Also, you can go to kingdomcomics.com. Okay. That's spelled KEYNGDOM. My comic books should be, my partner in Texas said he was going to have them up on there this weekend. It might not be until end of next week, but you should be able to order them directly from his website as well. I think I sent you that information as well to share. Yep.
So we'll definitely get all that stuff, because sometimes in the episodes, people will say the stuff, but then people at the end of it, they'll be like,
"What was it?"
I want a link to click. So we'll make sure that we get that stuff ready to go. But I have you on Instagram and on Facebook, so I'm looking at your pages now. Just making sure that if there's anything that I need to bring up, I'll make sure to bring that stuff up. So let's kind of get into it, right? So as a writer, I'm sure that when you were young, writing wasn't your thing, but because I don't know anybody that says, I want to be a writer when I grow up. But let's go to this. It could be when you were young, when you were in elementary school, when you first started coming up. What did you want to be when you grew up?
When I was in second grade, the first thing I wanted to be was a psychologist. Actually, no, my bad. Let's back up. I got a little bit ahead there. I wanted to be a cop. Then I wanted to be a Secret Service agent. Then I wanted to be a psychologist. Okay. Then I wanted to be a U.S. Navy SEAL. Then I wanted to be a rapper. And then that didn't happen. Okay. I actually did used to rap. I do have music online from 14 years ago. I don't do that anymore.
It's a former life.
yeah. It's a former life, alter ego, if you will, I guess. And then the comic book thing just kind of came out of nowhere. That was just, sometimes pieces fall together. That just kind of fell together on its own. So,
okay,
definitely not something that was planned by any means.
So now let's kind of go into the writing, right? So how many series, are you on your own main series that you're writing for the comic, or are you writing for multiple other comics as well?
Great question, because I just released my first comic. I created it and I wrote it. I'm the head writer, but I do have a co-writer because I did publish it through an independent comic book company, which is to say me and someone else out of our own homes did this ourselves. Okay. gentleman named Geoffrey Cotton. He's actually made like 5. He actually has like 5 comic book series of his own under his belt. He's mainly horror. He has a comic book called Awful Thoughts, which is kind of like a horror anthology.
Mm-hmm.
He did ask me to write. So it's a series of like scary stories or horror stories, or if you will. He did ask me to write one of the stories in it, which this was months ago now, which I was super flattered about. And I wrote the story in like, it's only 6 pages long. So, I wrote the story in like a day, and I sent it to him, and he read it, and he's like, yeah, we'll use it. And I was like, I don't know. I just felt so honored because this guy's been doing this for years, has multiple series. And he's like, hey, write a little story for my horror anthology. I wrote it. He liked it. He's like, yep, we'll use it. But then he's working. So this one, my book, Cosa Nostra's Comrade, my first book, I don't have any plans at the moment to start any other series. I'd like to get maybe 2 or 3 issues into this one, and then jump into another story. In the meantime, like I said, he has asked me to write a story for him. That's a go. He's working on another book right now called Roseville. He's issue number 2 of it is going to be coming out within the next year and a half. So he's doing Kickstarter and all that good stuff for that. And then after that, he's doing issue number 2 of Awful Thoughts, which my story will be featured in. Other than that, just focusing on putting together issue number 2 now for my book.
Okay, cool. And so, if you're able to,
Yeah.
kind of give us like the first iterations of kind of like what brought you about to bring this specific story out to the world.
So I'll go back to like 2006. There was a movie that came out. So in general, when I was coming up in high school, I did write a lot. I hated English class. I hated reading. I hate reading novels. I'll be honest, I do. But I could always write poems. I could always write poetry. I could always come up with cool, interesting, or thought-provoking quotes. So I could write. Hence becoming rapping and all that. But in 2006, there was a movie that came out with Nicolas Cage called Lord of War, and I think it was on TV in like 2007, and I saw it. And now my comic book has nothing to do with that movie. I just got the idea from watching the movie. At the beginning of the movie, spoiler alert if you've never seen the movie Lord of War.
It's the beginning.
It's the beginning. It's loosely based on a true story. Nicolas Cage is a Ukrainian who, it's like in the early 80s, he becomes an arms dealer, but at first he witnesses the Russian mafia do a hit. And I thought to myself, it'd be really cool if a Russian was working for the Italian-American mafia. Because it's like, they don't do stuff like that. In order to be, if anything knows anything about the mafia in our country, like you have to be Italian to be part of the group. Mm-hmm. So for some reason, I just thought that concept would be really cool. I was like, I'll write a movie script. I got 2 pages into it and I was like, this is stupid. I don't know how to write a movie script. I'm done. That was the end of that. Well, then I got into comics in 2019. I met a local comic book artist and creator here who is he's a creator, writer, and artist, does all his own stuff, and he does exclusive covers for like Image and Dynamite and IDW. His name is Kevin Delgado. So him and I
might know him.
Do you know Kevin?
Yes, I do.
You do? Yeah, no,
yes.
Kevin's awesome. I've got like 10 commission covers from him. Like he's just
shout out to Tough Stuff creator Kevin Delgado.
100%. I'm not afraid to say it. That man is my favorite artist. I just can't afford him. But
I have some comic book exclusives from him for my Comic-Con for last year, just so you know, if you're ever interested.
The
Gotcha Man.
Oh, I did. I actually just stopped by his house last week and picked up his Department of Truth exclusive Virgin cover and his new Godzilla foil cover.
Oh, nice. Which
are both absolutely awesome. Yeah, I've got art prints from him. I've got commission covers that I hired him to do. Like, I just think he's great. But
enough about him. Let's more about you.
yeah. So he kind of shoot, I was kind of all over the place there. So anyway, I got the idea. I thought it would be cool for a Russian to be in the mafia, because that doesn't, the Italian American mafia, because that doesn't happen. And after I had gotten into comic books, I started into comic books by just reading them. Mm-hmm. Then I went through a phase where I wasn't reading them. I was just collecting them, and I was sending stuff to CGC to get graded. Then I stopped doing all of it. Then I fell back into collecting again. And then I was at a comic book store locally I had never been to before, and the guy there had some of Kevin's stuff, and he's like, yeah, this is Kevin. Da, 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 da. And I actually went out of my way, looked up Kevin on Facebook. Sent him a message. We got talking. Him and I are kind of friends now and everything. And I got some copies of Tough Stuff, and I started reading it. And at that point, I hadn't read comics in, I don't know, months. And after I read Tough Stuff, I was like, okay. It was like I started buying comic books again to actually read them. Mm-hmm. So Kevin kind of got me back into actually reading them. And then I kind of thought to myself, well, I can't draw. I can write. I was like, he made his own book. Like, why can't I? And then I remembered that story, or that idea, for a Russian working for the mafia. Mm-hmm. But I made a lot of changes to it, so that it was just going to be like this full-blooded authentic Russian, just like performing hits for the mafia. It's like, which historically, I don't think anything like that has happened. But if anyone knows history of the mafia, there was that group called Murder Inc. Mm-hmm. And no, it's got nothing to do with Ja Rule. That's just a coincidence. Those guys, I think one of them was Italian. I think there were three of them. I believe one of them was Italian and the other two were Jewish guys. Well, they were known for being hired by the mob for performing hits. And 2 out of 3 of them were not Italian. So not out of the ordinary for the Italian American mafia to be working with other ethnicities and groups. So not completely out of the realm. But so then I remembered that. And then just everything just kind of came flooding in, but it was all brand new, like places, names, the storyline, and it all just kind of came together. I know I'm making this sound easy and simple. Mm-hmm. I've started putting things together for issue number 2 of this. And this is kind of like how it was when I first started rapping. Like when I used to rap, like everything would just kind of come to you, like even when you were writing. And now I'm at a spot where it's like I really got to think about this, So, but no, everything came together. Just started coming to me. I put it down. I made storyboards, the whole 9 yards, and it really all just kind of pieced itself together.
Nice, yeah, man. I mean, it's definitely something that it just gives you another aspect to be able to talk about. This type of storyline, right? I mean, who doesn't like The Godfather? Who doesn't like Al Pacino? There's all those like Goodfellas and Sony. What is it? Why is it slipping my brain right now? Say hello to my little friend. Why am I forgetting this?
Scarface.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. It's just like completely like emptied out my brain. But like everybody kind of remembers those stories for long times. It's not like they just told those stories and that was it. These stories kind of carried through, and you could kind of still see some elements of the mafia's influence in art and in a lot of culture in a lot of the movies that we watch now as they do different types of iterations. So being able to kind of give a different light on it is definitely something that's pretty cool. But, other than bringing up the concept of the actual works, like let's go through the writing process, right? So like you're already through episode 1, or I should say issue 1. You're going to be looking at any others to kind of help you get through these series and be able to tell the whole storyline. What's your episode series like ending, right? Like how many episodes or a series or issues you're going to go through before you feel like this telling, if you will, is going to be the best like sizing?
Well, originally it was only going to be like 4 issues, but then myself and my co-writer got other ideas, and then I was like, okay, this is probably going to take like 6 to 8, and then I got other ideas, and I was like, you know what? If we can keep going with it, I want to keep going with it. So, at the moment, I don't have like a set number of issues where it's going to be like, okay, when we get to issue 12 or issue 16. that's going to be the end of it. It's going to go until it's done, and however many issues that is, and it's that many issues.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be pretty interesting to see how you kind of delve into this now. If somebody wanted to pick up a copy, what's the best place to kind of start, going through the motions of reading at least the first comic?
So, I mean, if anybody wants to get it digitally, you can, of course, message me on Facebook or Instagram. For $3, I'll send you a digital copy. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, I know most people aren't comfortable with giving a complete stranger PayPal or Venmo or whatever over, without it being like official business, an official business website, if you will. So my partner and co-writer, who the book is published under, which is Kingdom Comics, you can go to his website, which by the end of this week, you should be able to order a copy directly off of his website. Otherwise, if anyone does feel comfortable, you can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. And if you're comfortable doing Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo, you can get it through me. I do have my very first comic book signing on May 3rd on Free Comic Book Day. So right now, mainly I'm trying to save stock for that. Right. But you can reach out to my co-writer as well. His name is on the book, Joffrey Cotton, and then his website, kingdomcomics.com. And Kingdom is spelled not like the traditional Kingdom. So
yeah, key, and then NGDOM, right?
Key. Oh, I gotta say it this way because it confuses me too. KEYNGDOM. So it almost kind of looks. I look at it and
like a key for your house is instead of the KI, it's a key.
Yeah. So it's almost.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're good.
So you're going through this comic book. You're kind of getting a lot of the stuff done. I know that you said you have a signing. Is there a particular day and location for that signing? Or is it all fleshed out already?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's this upcoming Saturday, May 3rd, Free Comic Book Day, at 11 a.m. Eastern at Kingpin Comics and Gaming on Delaware Avenue in Buffalo, New York.
Okay.
And I'll be there for 5 or 6 hours.
All right. Yeah. I mean, you're on the other side of New York, but definitely want to make sure that people know, because I'm sure that there's going to be somebody that either Kevin knows, that's going to be in Buffalo and want to take a look. So definitely check them out. When it comes to the writing process and kind of going through the motions of kind of getting the ideas and storylines and stuff like that, do you, as you're kind of growing this comic book especially, do you feel like you're getting any writer's block, or is it just flowing right now because you're so immersed in the story?
So now I feel, for sure you're kind of getting some writer's block because you're taking it, because when I first started, I had this whole idea, and it was going to be very short and sweet. And then Joffrey, because he's started so many little series himself, he helped me expand it. And at the time, my intention was not to do like a one shot, like a one and done comic book issue. I wanted to have multiple issues. So what I originally presented to him, he said to me, he's like, what you have here is too much and it's too little. He said it's too little because the story ends too fast, and it's too much because you have too much substance going on in such a small amount of comic book pages. Yeah. So he helped me to kind of develop on that. So I'm more good on development and kind of, I don't want to say expanding things. And so now that I'm started kind of putting things together for issue number 2, him and I both have a lot of ideas on the table, and sometimes even with things that I think might be a good idea, like I put the idea down and it's almost, it almost kind of starts to clog up. Not that it clogs up, but it's like, man, it's like, I got this idea, I got that idea. And then you got to start kind of, because I told him, and the plan is he typed up a whole bunch of stuff and he sent it to me. And he's like, just read over everything. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, I want to go over everything at the same time. I said, I want to have your stuff up on my computer screen, my stuff up, and then be talking to you at the same time because he's in Texas. And then we can kind of go through everything together and figure out, okay, we'll keep this, we'll get rid of that. Okay, we'll put this on the on the back burner because we might want to come back and do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he has a different process than I do. He kind of fires everything down. He's very quick. He's a very quick guy, very creative, very fast thinking, and he can put stuff together real.
It sounds like he's your checks and balances.
Yeah, he's definitely checks and balances. Where I'm kind of, not to say he's not organized, but I'm kind of more structured with how I do it. Like I made a list of every character that's been seen or mentioned or that we haven't seen yet, and just simple little things to kind of just almost like a frame of reference to be like, okay, how can we bring this character back? Do we need to bring this character back? Are they done? You know what I mean? Are they done? So like I wanted to leave every possible avenue open. So I'm working on that right now. And, my life's been a little bit busy outside of home life. So I haven't had a whole lot of time to start putting this together. But luckily, he's, like I said, working on, because he's my co-writer. So he's working on, issue number 2 to one of his books. And then he's going to be starting issue number 2 to his other book before we get to issue number 2 of mine. So luckily, I have some time to kind of, really put this stuff together and for him and I to go over it. But he does want to have it like finalized as quickly as possible, which is what I love about him. But you're definitely right. He's the checks and balance. He usually keeps me in line. There has been some times where I've kept him in line. And we also have butted heads like, we kind of fight like brothers do. I don't know if we have siblings, but, because he's made 5 comic book series on his own. This was his first time ever collaborating with another writer, and he said he really enjoyed it, and he's been a mentor to me and everything. So, but yeah, man, I mean, you definitely, putting that stuff together in terms of what you're going to do for your story, you definitely get like, oh crap, like.
Yeah.
Do I want to do that? Should I do that? And then, well, if I do that, then I might have to change this. And then is it worth it? How is that going to affect the story? So yeah, you definitely have those moments of blockage where you get frustrated, and then you just kind of be like, I got to step away from this for a little bit,
Yeah, now, when it comes to like comic books, it's always, where are you building this to, right? So like, I know that a lot of comic book creators are telling their stories to build a bigger universe. Is this something that's going to eventually connect to another universe in the sense of another series? Or is this, it's one like selection of series is once you get through this, you're going to kind of go through a different, like I've had writers on here that went from doing kid related material to going to horror, right? Hey, listen, I mean, if that's where your mind's going, then that's where your mind's going. And I've had somebody go from like where their story is and then just butt it off into another story. So at the end of this story, do you feel, if it's successful and you really put a lot of effort into it, you finish this series, are you going to butt it into other additional series in the sense of comic book releases, or is this going to be its own one shot and you're going to go to something else?
So we actually, I've already dabbled with the idea of doing like a prequel story to this one.
Okay.
That's something that
it's very Star Wars of you.
Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but that idea is kind of, we've placed it on the shelf. We haven't said that we're 100% going to do it. It is a cool idea, but it also may be a little bit of a cliche. So, but the idea is there to do a prequel to this, to my first book, and then of course after that, I would like to do another comic book series. As far as whether or not if it's in like the same universe as my first book, Cosa Nostra's Comrade, that remains to be seen. Because Joffrey, he's mainly horror, so. And he's allowed me to write that one little mini story in his horror anthology book. Mm-hmm. So I've already dipped my toe into that. It's just a matter of time of waiting for that to get done. I don't know if I did have some small ideas to maybe do my own horror book, but I don't know if that's something that I want to do or not. If it's something that he wants to team up with me on, but it's his book, and I co-write it. I'm 100% on board for that. But as far as myself, I don't have any plans besides the possible prequel spinoff to my current book. Mm-hmm. and then I don't know if I want to do another mob-related story after that or whatever the case may be. So my main focus right now is mainly on this book and its future issues.
Now let me ask you a question. Now, what kind of drew you to this specific type of story, right? Because other people they go superheroes, other people they go like sci-fi, they go. What brought you to the mafia style, hitman style book? Is there things that in your life that occurred, or is it more just the interest that you had in it? What brought you to this storyline?
Oh, well, definitely both of those things. But because when like I said, first got exposed like in person to comic books in 2019. Like I didn't know that comic books were not all about superheroes and weren't all about like Batman, Superman, Justice League, the Avengers, and everyone else who kind of falls into that. And I mean, I remember just to kind of give you an example, like this is how people think about comic books. When my aunt found out I was making a comic book, the first thing she said to me, she was like, "So I heard you're making a comic book. What's your hero superpower?" And I was like, there is no superpower. And so what I was getting at is after going to this comic book store and stuff, I learned that there are thousands of comic books out there that have nothing to do with superheroes. They're like you said, horror, or just everyday life, or science fiction. Every possible genre. And once I saw that, and I saw that people were selling it and could be successful, I was like, well, that's awesome. I was like, so that knowing that it was like, it's not all superheroes, and it's not I mean, it makes sense that, kind of naive of me to not think about that. But like I said, I hadn't been really exposed to those comics and comic books in general.
I mean, not many people are. So it's something that definitely, seeing the different types of available stories, that comic books aren't just superheroes. It's about other things. It opens up your world and opens up your genre. So yeah, definitely.
And like, again, with that example of my aunt, she immediately, what's your superpower? It's like, don't have a superhero, So, not to kind of, have you seen Goodfellas?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
My dad thinks he's Italian, so.
I'm German and Irish. I'm pretty sure my entire family thinks they're Italian, so I get it, man. I get it. Not to quote Ray Liotta, or not to fully quote Ray Liotta here, but as in the movie Goodfellas, he says, as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. I think, like you said earlier, most people, especially us guys for sure, we know about the mafia. We've seen the great mafia movies. We know about maybe some of the history of the real mafia. There's something that is very attractive about that. I mean, if you take, like I've always said, and I've said this on other shows, if you take away everything that's illegal, if you take away the killing and the extortion and the gambling and the prostitution and the hijacking, basically everything that's bad.
What do you have?
Well, no, what you have is you have the American dream. You have a bunch of guys that hang out with each other all day. They have pretty girls on their hips. They wear nice clothes. They have nice jewelry. They have nice cars. They're able to live in their homes, and they have money to do whatever they want when they want. That's the American dream. So I think that's kind of what's partially attractive about it. And I think any young man, for the most part, that grew up, especially exposed to these movies, there's something attractive and alluring about that, especially with The Godfather, because The Godfather made it more, about the actual family itself. Mm-hmm. So it's romanticized for sure, but that just kind of pulls people in. And I saw The Godfather when I was very young. Got Scarface too. I saw Scarface when I was 5 years old. I know some people might be watching this and be like, "Your parents are horrible," but no, I saw this.
I saw Friday the 13th, and I saw a Nightmare on Elm Street around the same age. So trust me, I get it.
Oh, so did I, man. I mean, nowadays you'd be put on some kind of like watch list if you did that to your children. But, but yeah, no, it's like I'll give you another example. Like, I'm not Italian. My family's not Italian. Growing up, my brother, he's left-handed. He's older than me. Because he's left-handed, my dad I don't know if you've seen Donnie Brasco, the character Al Pacino plays. He plays Lefty from Mulberry Street. So because my brother is left-handed, my dad has always called my brother Lefty. Now, this is kind of mafia-ish. There was, and he doesn't have many good movies at all. There was that Steven Seagal movie, Out for Justice, where he plays the cop in Brooklyn who has ties to the mafia. And his name was Gino. And for whatever reason, like in the early 90s, after that, my dad just started calling me Gino. And I've been Gino ever since. I'm 33. I've been Gino since I was like 4 or 5 years old. And my dad loves The Godfather. And in some of the ways that if you've never seen the movie, in some of the ways that Marlon Brando, who plays Vito Corleone, operates, is actually kind of the way, and I've actually learned from my dad, is kind of how to act with everyday people. My dad, I'm sure you might know this in your life too. There's always that, whether it's one of your relatives or someone everybody knows a guy that can do something, right? If you don't know the guy that can do it, the guy that knows the guy that knows the guy that can do it, right? My dad's one of those guys, and he's very big on favors and stuff like that, which if you watch The Godfather, that's kind of how Vito or Marlon Brando operates. It's kind of like, I'll do this for you, but,
there's going to be a time.
Yeah, right. There's going to be a time where I may call on you, right, to do a service for me. But I think what that is that's mutual respect. It's not you owe me. It's I did something for you. Now I need your help. I would hope that you would have the respect to help me. So I've kind of learned that, so you can take that concept from The Godfather, but not only that, I've taken that from my dad because he does that in his everyday life. He almost, anything well, I've heard other people say it to him. He'll be like, well, I know a guy who owes me a favor, blah, blah, blah. And I've seen him have conversations with people on the phone. Oh, hey, how you doing? And he'll be like, hey, I need you, someone needs a blah, blah, blah. Can you do it? And it's just like, no questions asked. Yeah, sure. No money's exchanged, nothing. It's just, yep, I can do it. When do you need me? I'll be there. No problem. Done. It's that, it's this cycle of mutual respect. It's, I do for you when I need you. You do for me, and then the cycle just keeps going, and I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it kind of speaks to your story, right? I mean, you're taking somebody that's outside of the mafia, technically, not Italian. I mean, not technically, but they're not Italian. And then they're actually working for the mafia in the sense of doing them their favors. I'm sure that it's for money though, on this aspect, but. Now, when you're talking about your story, right? Are you speaking from a first person perspective, a third person perspective, like a narrator's kind of telling you what's going on with this hitman, or is it more like this guy's telling his story as a hitman for the mafia?
So it's definitely narrated, kind of from like a kind of from that I always mess up this word, the omniscient, the all-knowing God-like point of view. But it's also there to not just be that, but to kind of guide people. Because I'm sorry, but sometimes in comic books I've noticed in certain comic books, you really do need that narration to guide people. Because I've noticed people can get lost very easily. Squirrel. And then of course, squirrel. That's good. That was great. And then damn, now I'm seeing squirrels, dude.
No, it's all good. But I see what you're saying. You got to really direct the story so that way people follow that storyline.
Oh yeah, and then don't get me wrong, the dialogue is there. Like I've read comic books where it's like nothing but narration, and there's like almost no dialogue. You see that in some of you see that in a lot of in some Spawn comics. Like you open it up and there's like. I've seen Spawn pages where there's like 15 narration boxes on one page, and maybe one speech bubble that doesn't even have a 10-word sentence in it. So I mean, I did want it to be so you need that that guiding hand, which is the narration. Also, you have to know how to read comic books. I had my dad say to me, there's this one point in the comic book where They're showing outside of a rundown apartment complex, and there's a guy saying, "Yo, that was dope as hell, son." And my dad said, "That part I didn't understand. Why would a guy in the mafia say dope as hell?" And I'm like, "Dad," I'm like, "he's outside a rundown apartment complex." I'm like, "That's not a guy in the mafia." I said, it's just an everyday person hanging out with some people. They're just showing. And if you look at the top left, it says the next morning outside Andre's apartment, so you can kind of surmise that, that guy's he's just there. He's
rando that's hanging out with them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't know how to read comic books too, top to bottom, left to right, narration box before speech bubble for the most part. And people don't get me wrong, I've read some comics too where I've gotten confused because of the placement of the bubbles in the boxes, and then you can kind of get lost in it. So it can be, depending on the book you're reading, and I'm talking about ones that are professionally printed by major companies, and it's like you can read it and you can actually get confused and lost in it. So but point I'm trying to get is I like there to be that helping, that little bit of a guiding hand with the narration box that's kind of omniscient, but also lets you know what's going on, because sometimes you might not be able to get everything just from the imagery or just from the art and then just from the dialogue. So sometimes you need to kind of throw a couple bones in there, and everyone's like, okay, now I can see it. Now it makes sense.
You're grounding your audience. And so now when it comes to matching your words to the page, right, to the art, what's the process between you and Kevin, where you're kind of telling him this is how it's kind of going through, or like tell me what that process looks like between between you writing and then the actual action of the art going onto the page.
Oh, you mean me and Joffrey?
Yeah. Okay.
You said Kevin. I don't. I don't.
Yeah, Joffrey. Sorry.
No. You're good. I wish Kevin was my artist on this. Like 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can't afford him. God bless him.
Kev, come on, man. No.
No, he's great. I buy I buy his work from him constantly. So I'm constantly getting something from him. So, in fact, just to throw this out there, anytime he does something, like even if he does a commission that's like not for someone else, he just decided I'm going to do this, and he puts it up, and he's like, 150 for this, 200, 300. I'm like, oh, I don't have the money right now. Like anything he puts up, like I want it. But anyway, back
for Joffrey and you. Sorry.
No, for Joffrey and me, you were asking about the writing process from the art to adding
so like you have your script, right? And now you're going to be putting it onto a page, and you're going to be putting some art behind it, right? Take me through the collaboration there between you and the artist, in the sense that, sometimes like if you don't have that good match where you have that art on there, it doesn't make sense with the writing that's there. How do you match that stuff up? How do you go through that process?
So Joffrey and I, ironically, because he does this with all his comic books, he does it the same way that I do. And now he's a writer. Our artist is Tom Cuthbert out of Alabama.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I'll say about Tom. He doesn't, I don't know why, but this guy does not like the spotlight. So what Joffrey and I do, the way we do it is it's kind of like making a movie backwards. And what I mean by that is when you're filming a movie, you're filming the action and the dialogue at the same time. When I make a comic book or Joffrey makes a comic book, we do the storyboards, we figure out what you're going to see, have them do the art, and then we add all the dialogue after. So imagine making a movie, having all the action, all the scenes happen, and then you're doing the dialogue after.
Yeah, in silence, and then all of a sudden you have to put audio onto it. Yeah.
So that's kind of how we do it. So I mean, we know, we have an idea of what we're going to say and where we're going, and that gets defined by what's happening and in the visuals by the art. But then we add all the writing after the fact. So everything is kind of not everything, but to a degree, it's almost kind of freestyled. But we of course double check it to make sure that everything aligns and it makes sense. There's even one. I mean, and we read over issue number 1 so many times. Like he read over issue number 1 so many times for editing. I read over it. He had a friend of his mom's who used to be an English teacher read over it. I had a couple people read it, and then weeks later, I read it again and I found one small mistake, and we were like, how did everybody miss that? It's amazing how you can miss small things.
Mhm.
But then after it was all done and printed and everything, there was one page, I can't remember what it was, where the word usage was kind of like repetitive. It was like almost saying the same thing twice. And then I had a mini meltdown. I'm like, that is so sloppy. But it's like, I showed it to a couple people and they're like, to be honest with you, if you're not looking for it, if you read that, you just keep going and it doesn't matter. So I was like, all right, I'll just let it go.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases it could be that, somebody's stuttering and they're saying the same thing over again, or it's like, but how could you? And then the next scene, but how could you? And it could be a different emphasis on the way that they're saying the same thing.
Which is cool too, because there was a couple like questionable mistakes that we unintentionally made. But based on the time period in which the book takes place, which is 1983, I found ways to where if anybody picks up on these things, I can explain them away, which I think is pretty cool. Like, I'll just give you one example. On the cover of issue number 1, there's a Glock, which is a type of pistol that's laying on the floor. In 1983, you could not buy a Glock in America. They already existed, but they weren't available here, and I don't think until 1986. So then my explanation for that was, we were too far along at this point, and my explanation for that is, well, they're in the mafia. I'm sure that they have access to people to get things like guns and other illegal things. So it would make sense that there's a Glock there because, number one, the gun did exist. Number two, even though it didn't exist here, they're the mafia. I'm sure that they have ties and connections to people.
They know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy.
They know the guy that knows. Exactly. It fell off a truck. In this case, it fell off a boat.
Yeah.
So, and then there was one or two small other things, but they can be easily
explained. And I mean, it adds to the story, right? And I mean, this is fiction, so it doesn't necessarily have to be accurate 100% of the time, all the time. I mean, unless somebody's like really adamant about making sure that you're a purist. But I mean, this is your telling, so.
No, that's true. But I was very adamant about that from the beginning. I'm like, I want this to be like, we can't have, it's 1983. You can't have someone walking down the road and looking at a frickin' iPhone. Like, it's like, that was a big thing for me. I'm like, I want this to be like, as accurate.
I don't even think pagers were around back then. They were just payphones. That was it. Ugh.
Oh yeah. And I think in 83, I think they did have the big
the Zach Morris one?
Or it might have just been the in-car ones. The ones
I think
that were
it was the in-car one. Yeah.
Like in the console. My dad had one of those back in the early 90s.
He probably knew a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy, huh?
Unfortunately, no. That one was installed by the company he worked for, so he didn't have to pay for it. But you had this box that looks like it's almost like a radio for the military, and then it's got this wired phone that you pick up. It had the numbers on the back of it. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, rotary.
To quote Chris Rock from Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I wanted things to be as accurate to the time period as possible. I didn't want there to be like any, historical inaccuracies in terms of just, what was and wasn't available, or what you would have or would not have seen in that time period.
Yeah. So, a lot of other questions that I like to ask is, as a writer, there's always that. Like, no offense to your artist, of course, your art is going into the book and it's showing some great stuff. Because I'm like, basically, as I'm talking to you, I'm looking at your page to kind of see what the book looks like, to get some context. And so, other than your artist, and like I said, no offense to your artist currently, but is there any other artist that you guys would love to, like, if you had the choice of any artist in the comic book world to work with, who would that artist be?
It'd be Kevin Delgado. I like I said, like him and I are, we don't see each other a lot. We talk to each other regularly. I hate when someone says, I consider you a friend. To me, he's a friend. I would hope that he feels the same way. We talk regularly. I support him a lot with, what he does. And, I ask him for a lot of advice with little things and stuff. And he's always more than happy to help me out. So, hands down, it would be Kevin, just because plus, we're local. It's kind of like,
I mean, he's a chill guy, man. I can't say that he's not. So
no, he's great. He's great. Like, and I I think he kind of mentioned it to me. He kind of gave me two examples. I think he basically, in a manner of speaking, said like I could do it, but and then he showed me like an example of something. He's like, but this is what $350 a page is going to get you. And I was like, you could totally see. And it's like, okay, it's like you can see the amount of detail and extra time that went into this page, right? Whereas, if you do like $100 a page, you're not going to have, as much color, as much pop, as much brightness, as much time spent on it. So maybe he would be able to, but Tom Cuthbert, has done. I can't speak enough about his the covers that he's done for this book. He did all the covers except for the Metal Gear Solid homage that was actually done by a artist out of California by the name of Nathan Lawson, who is doing his first comic book. He has a Kickstarter up right now. It's called Nullified. I don't know if you saw that Metal Gear Solid one on there. So only 25. Only 25 of those exist. They were meant for the Kickstarter only.
That's the one with the character holding the gun up to his face.
That's an homage to the. I don't know if you're able to Google it there, but if you look at the cover for Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty, it's an homage to that. And he absolutely crushed it. And I've had a lot of people ask about that cover, and it's like, well, yeah, I have 3 of them left. They're $50 a piece. They're made out of metal. Not everybody wants to spend $50 on these, but we had 25 of them. I think after the Kickstarter was over, I ended up with 7 of them. I have 3 left. I have 3 left for the comic book signing next Saturday.
Nice.
So I'm hoping they go. If they don't, I know most guys for the metal covers, they usually sell around 60, 75. I was like, I'm going to do 50. I'm new. People don't know me. I feel like someone's going to be more apt to spend 50 than 75. But what I wanted to get back to with Tom is, and I don't know if you're a Tupac fan, but I'm sure you saw that cover. A was the hip hop homage cover to Tupac's "Me Against the World" album cover. I don't know if you saw that.
Probably passing. So you're talking about your covers because I see 5 covers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's right. So one of
which one are you talking about? Just so I have
the one where you see the main character leaning up against the wall in the Adidas jacket.
Yeah, with the tracksuit on.
Yep, and it says, parental advisory. If you Google "Me Against the World" by Tupac, that's an homage to his album cover.
Oh, cool.
And then Tom, he was Tom Cuthbert, the noir cover. That's kind of like the nighttime one with the shadows, with the blue and the black.
Yeah.
That cover Tom did out of the kindness of his heart. He said, I have an idea. I want to do this type of cover. And he didn't charge me for that. So, and He said, I'll just do this and you guys can use it. So I was really, really thankful for him for that. And I can't speak enough about how great these covers are. And I wish I could say that every single one of them was my idea, and they weren't. But only 2 out of the 5 covers, for the specifics of them, were my idea. One of them was a last-minute surprise. The metal cover was a last-minute thing that Joffrey got an idea for, and he's like, I got a surprise. I hired an artist. I'm like, just tell me. And, he's like, it's an homage to a video game cover. I'm like, that's awesome. I don't think I've ever... At the time, I had never seen someone do an homage to a video game cover. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, it's Mafia, it's gangster related, it's got to be something action or with a gun. And he's like, if I give you a hint, I'm going to give it away. And I'm like, dude, come on. I'm like, just tell me. He's like, all right, it's a guy holding a Desert Eagle. I'm like, there's no one holding a Desert Eagle, even if you look at that cover. And I said, it's Metal Gear Solid. And he goes, he didn't, he said the F word, but, he's like, this is why I didn't want to say anything, but I was like, it was so easy to pick up on it. Yeah. So that was his idea. That was his idea. Like I said, the noir cover, that was a gift from Tom. The hip hop homage cover, that was my idea. Then you got that Virgin cover with the him holding the rifle in the tracksuit with the Italian flag, and then the crimson red in the background. I wanted the crimson red because that it's 1983 and he's Russian, so that's like that, that Soviet
red
color.
Heat. Yeah, red heat.
Red heat. So yeah, that's why I wanted that in there. And yeah, no, I can't speak highly enough about and Joffrey, my co-writer. He's been could not have done this without him. He showed me how to do a lot of things, how to go about a lot of things. He also did a lot of things for me that, he put together the Kickstarter. He ran the Kickstarter. He's a phenomenal graphic designer. He also cleans and presses and refurbishes comic books. Like, he's comic books 24/7. Like,
Nice.
That's what the guy does. If he's not making them, he's making ads for them, for other people. He's, fixing them for other people, sending them to CGC for people. That's what he does. So he's comic books 24/7. And I wish I could be that, but unfortunately I have to work my 9 to 5.
Trust me, bro. I completely get it. So, the biggest thing that I want to make sure that people kind of come across is the book, kind of like where you're coming from and stuff like that. But now this is more of a question of, if you had somebody that wanted to be inspired by the things that you do and kind of eventually want to become their own writer or their own artist in their own right, what is some good advice that you learned as a first-time comic book creator that you kind of wish that somebody would have told you when you first started going in? What's some good advice that you kind of pass down to someone?
Well, the first thing I would say, if you want to do it and you don't think you can, and you need to just do it, because that's exactly what I did. When your mind is your most powerful weapon. If you make up your mind and you really make a decision with the just the utmost, I want to say, if you make a decision and it's with your full willpower behind it, you are going to do it. Like, it will happen for you. And as someone and I'm not trying to, you don't have to spend time on this, but I used to be a very heavy drinker. I had a huge problem. I'll be 7 years sober in June. Like, when I stopped drinking, thanks, I appreciate that. When I stopped drinking, I made the decision while I was drunk. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Sometimes a light bulb just clicks on, and you just have to let that light bulb click on. If you really want to do it, you just say, I'm going to do it, and just start doing it, even if you have no idea what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So if you want to be a writer, do what I did. If you're unsure, just make some story. If you have a story in mind, just make some storyboards. That's half the battle right there, because that's going to help when you get an artist. That's going to help the artist, because you're going to be able to give him what he needs to know what to create for you, so you can add the writing to it. Mm-hmm. So, I know it sounds cliche and easy and kind of not very in depth, but that's really all it is. It's just kind of, just make up your mind. If you want to do it, just go and do it. Like, if you want to do it and you make that decision to do it, it's going to happen. But then you have to put it into action. So decide yes. So if you're already at that point, you're already halfway there. If you've already decided yes, you're 50% there. Now just start doing it. There's no correct way to start doing it. Ask other people for advice. Ask other people that have written books independently for advice. Ask artists. I would even take it one step further. Ask someone like Kevin, for example. He is an artist. He's a creator, artist, and writer. Mm-hmm. If you can find someone like that, they do everything themselves. And everybody's going to tell you something different. Someone's going to tell you things that are similar. But yeah, man, just if you want to do it, make the decision and just take action, and then everything else will come together. You'll start just doing things and asking people questions, and then slowly things will just start piecing together. To me, it really is that simple, because I had no idea. I had never done this. I just said, I want to do this. I'm doing it. I wrote the storyboards. Then I started asking other people questions, and then everything just came together. So.
No, that's awesome. I mean, Jacob, thank you for allowing me to interview you. It's been a pleasure. Before we kind of go to the closing of our interview and kind of shuttering the doors, if you will, on this episode, I want to make sure that, not only with the advice part, that you have your capability of giving your final words. If there's a person that wants to support you in your endeavors, if it's somebody that you want to reach out to, what's your final thought process on, your comic books, your writing, and everything? Bring it all together for me.
So if anybody wants to find me, my name is on screen. You can look me up on Facebook, and you can follow me. It's not only under my name, but it's also a business page for my little, like how James Tinian has Tiny Onion. Well, I have RKR Ruchser. So you can find me there. I know you're going to have the links later. You can find me on Instagram at ruchser.rare.key.runs. Also, if you just type in my name on Instagram, I'm pretty sure it still comes up. So you can follow me there. I think I gave you my email too. If anybody wants to email me, you can do that. And then, of course, you can go to...
we'll have all those links for you.
Okay, awesome. And then kingdomcomics.com. Shortly, Joffrey will have everything on there. That's the independent publisher of his. It's his publishing that I'm under. In the next week or so, you should be able to order copies of my book directly from him. However, if you do feel confident and comfortable enough, you can contact me directly in the meantime and say, hey, I'd like this, and then we can do PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, whatever, and I'll send it to you. If you're not comfortable with that, that's fine. He should have everything up and running on his website within the next week. As far as everything else, like this was an amazing process. It was just like anything else in life. It had its ups and downs, just like anything does. Nothing worth doing is easy. I always just say, just remember good things take time, and if you want to do something, you will. So make that decision and just take action. And good thing, it might take some time, but it will happen 100%.
All right, awesome. Jacob, thank you again for allowing me to interview you again, everybody. This is for the Icon Comic-Con Behind the Comic Book podcast. We're here to kind of interview comic book creators, writers, and artists to really kind of give a homage to the things that we do at Icon. It's important because a lot of these stories would not be told without these artists and writers that are coming together to give us these cool stories. Because again, you wouldn't have Captain America, you wouldn't have all these mainstream characters without the comic book creators and writers that are kind of like working through these processes now today. And then these artists and creators are bringing these storylines that will add for years to come different, hopefully eventually a movie adaptation, eventually some sort of novel. These things always add into, graphic novels or more. So supporting them and really getting behind their stories is one of the big things that help bring these these fictional stories, these non-fictional stories out into the light, to be able to have fun with them and to be able to grow with them and to be able to enjoy them for years to come. So that being said, everybody, this is Mr. 845, and we're hitting the streets. We're going to be interviewing even more artists and comic book creators as we go along. Check us out every Monday, 12 noon, as we drop all these different episodes on our YouTube. All right, guys, that being said, we'll talk to you soon. Check them out.